while baby is contently playing on the floor, I will attempt to go for number three. Actually, I don't know. Did she eat something? She's eating something. Okay. Yeah, sorry, she was eating something. Um, yeah, so going through pregnancy one, pregnancy two, now going to the twins, which I have got to say is one of the hardest things that I have ever done in my life. And I've done a lot of hard things. But yeah, like we went through a very, very turbulent time because we had decided that we wanted three children, or at least to have another one because we had two girls. And then we were trying, and I was really sick after the first births that I had. Like I was always feeling like horrible and always sick and just like something was just not right. And then anytime I went to the doctor, they didn't believe me, and they're like, "Oh, it's just stress. It's just stress." Like my eyelashes were falling out, and um, all kinds of things. Like my hair was thinning, and I could barely like lift my arms some mornings. I was just, it was horrible. And yes, and nobody, no, oh, it's stress, it's stress. So eventually we went to this woman who kind of well, I'm getting a bit off track, so I'll get back to that. But anyway, so we tried for a while, and I just kept having, like, I just remember I got pregnant and I was thinking, oh, this is really cool. I didn't even realize I was pregnant because we weren't necessarily trying, but I hadn't had my period back from Ida. So I was thinking, oh, we're just those lucky people that we can just like choose and pick and choose when we want to have kids and just be very lucky that we get pregnant. But all of a sudden at like 5 weeks, I was just thinking like, oh, something just doesn't feel right, and I'm having a little bit of blood. And so I had already contacted a midwife, and I was explaining to her like, and she was not very, she was a different one because the other one that we had prior wasn't available, and probably didn't want her again. But I was kind of, she was not very supportive, and she was just very like, I don't know, she made me feel horrible about the situation. But I remember bleeding a bit, and I just said to her, well, I bled for my first one, so I'm not sure if like this is okay. And she says, no, no bleeding during a pregnancy is fine. And she was a bit like jerky about it, not being sensitive to the fact that maybe I might be like a bit worried. So I just kept bleeding and bleeding, and then I ended up going to the hospital. Um, because or the emergency room, because I said to them, I think I'm having a miscarriage. Like I didn't know, and I was just in tears. I was just so gutted. And they called me in, and the doctor was amazing, and he actually explained to me that I was having a miscarriage. And then he sat with me, and eventually he said, well, what's going to happen is something is going to probably, come out in bigger form and everything. And he's like, and sometimes people like to keep that. And so he said, I'm not sure if it's something you want to do, but if you do, sometimes they keep it and they have a little ceremony, or sometimes. And I was more frustrated thinking like, how could this baby not want me? Like, how could this baby just decide that it didn't want to be, like, how could, like, I just had all these things going through my head. It wasn't, to me, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is a baby and I'm just gonna mourn it's going. I was more so hurt and so angry, thinking like, how could you not love me enough to want to be my kid? um so I was just, I could not stop bleeding, and I was bleeding everywhere, and I had pads and tampons, everything. And I went to the bathroom, and as I was going through the bathroom, the hallway, just blood all the way on the floor. And I sat down on the bathroom in the toilet, and just something just plopped out of me. And I just burst into tears and stuff. And well, actually, I didn't burst into tears there. I waited until I left because I didn't want, I don't know, I have this thing with not being comfortable with people knowing exactly like how hurt I am, and it was just a lot to process. So he gave me some gloves, and we fished it out, and he went through it, and he actually said that he thinks that there was nothing in the sac. So it might have been like a molar pregnancy, he said. So, but it was about 5 or 6 weeks. And that was my first experience with a miscarriage. And yeah, that was very, very, very tough. And then we ended up having another miscarriage, and then we had another miscarriage, and then we had this time where we thought we were pregnant again, and then we had another miscarriage. But it was just weird because the second one that I had, I was like, okay, we're pregnant again. I'm not gonna let the first time fill my mind and everything like that, about all these negative things that'll happen. But then around 8 weeks, everybody's like, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine," and I just kept saying like, "No, I don't feel pregnant. Like I don't feel pregnant anymore." And they said, "Oh no, you'll be fine. You're just worried from the first one." And it turned out So what happened, it died and it just came out of me again. So yeah, I had the second miscarriage. So I had four miscarriages. And in that time, it was such a strain on us that we ended up just splitting. And because we just didn't have a very good, solid marriage to begin with. And then this just put a lot more pressure on everything as well. And yeah, so then we ended up separating, and I was just in a dark spot. Like I couldn't get out of this place of always feeling sad, and just even though I had the two kids, it was still hard for me to accept that, this idea that I had created in my mind was just like not going to happen. And I always kind of felt like, why can't I have things that I want? So it's just anybody who's experienced a miscarriage goes through all these emotions where you can't be around people, and you can't that have children, and you just feel really bad for yourself, and it's hard to feel happy for other people, and it's just hard to be around anybody with children, and it's just hard to be happy and present in your life because you're mourning something, and it's just not, there's no one way to make it better. So yeah, so that leads us to the split, and I will continue part two with that and explain about the twins.